Welcome, everyone, to the Our Bernin Senate Sound-Off. This is a debate hosted by Our Revolution, Washington Bernie-Kratz Coalition, Our Revolution King County, Our Revolution Pierce County, and all the other Our Revolutions that we are partnering up with in our coalition. Today's debate is divided into 3 sections with 4 questions each. All candidates will get 2 minutes to answer the question. The timer will say warning when you have 30 seconds left, and the time when your time is set up. Oh, and time when your time is up. I'm sorry for that in advance. It was hard to schedule all questions with 4 candidates. So let me start with the opening statement from Gigi. So we're gonna have you guys do an opening statement, no longer than 2 minutes, okay? And then we'll move to the next. Gigi?
Good evening, everyone. I thank you for joining us. I'm Jennifer Gigi Ferguson, running for United States now. I'm running for United States Senate because in the 60s, I was part of busing. My family was part of civil rights era, and we were fighting for civil rights, for education for all. We were fighting for jobs for all. We were fighting for, and so many civil rights and human rights for, originally it was just Black Americans. Then just before Martin Luther King died, it became before all, for all Americans. It is really heartbreaking that today we're fighting that same struggle for all Americans. And I'm in this because I have lived it, being homeless, being hungry, losing my mother to cancer 6 months after she was diagnosed, 7.5, losing my brothers, being separated from my brothers, being abused. I'm taken into the Senate, US Senate, life experience, 30 years of volunteer experience, as well as having a mental health degree, a master's in mental health, and working with many families involved with our state and their children. Thank you very much.
Just for clarification, guys, when I say warning, that means you have 30 seconds left to wrap up, and time is when it's done.
Thank you
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Gigi. I appreciate that. Next, Jeremy, would you like to go?
I'm Dr. Jeremy Teuton. This is my 2nd time running for US Senate. Last time was in 2016. In 2016, I ran purely as an independent with the premise that the parties were the problem. I had the fortune of meeting this group during that and worked with a couple of other groups. And now I'm of the opinion that it's not a matter of parties are the problem, it's that the 2 parties are the problem. And they've managed to sell this dialogue that everybody who's a 3rd party candidate is somehow the equivalent of the tinfoil hat crazy guy in the corner of the room. And I think the message we need to send as 3rd party is it's not the 2 parties and the rest of the crazies, it's all of us against them. I never intended to be involved in politics. I've always been aware of issues, been informed on problems, but I'm a career research scientist by training. I have a PhD in molecular biology. I work at a national lab. In 2013, I brought my firstborn child home from the hospital to a government shutdown. And if you guys remember the government shutdown in 2013, there was no national crisis, there was no war, there was no critical issue. It was the 2 parties playing games against each other for no profit of the people, for no benefit to anyone. And that was the point where I decided I would get a little bit more involved and pay a little bit more attention and look for, this can't go on. This has to be the end of it. People will rise up. And I was wrong. And then I watched the 2016 election come around, and Bernie stood up and presented a whole lot of good ideas. And I get accused of being a fan of his or being a sucker for him, like a lot of Bernie fans, and that's not true. I just happen to agree with the vast majority of the positions he puts forward. That's why I agree with him. It's not because of some cult of personality. It's not because of some hate of Hillary.
Warning.
This is a politician who came forward and said exactly the things that I've said, only he said it on a public platform, on a public stage. And I think if we can get enough of us together to collectively agree that the 2 parties are ruining the country, a candidate for a non-2 party party could be elected to Senate. And that's 1 voice in 100. And that could get other voices from other states. And we could get just at least a tiny group that could break the two-party stalemate, and that's what I'm running for. That's what I'm running to represent all the people of Washington State, not just Democrats, not just Republicans.
Time.
Ah, wonderful. Thank you very much. Dave Strider? Oh, sorry, you're on mute. Hold on. There we go.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'm not used to being, talking and not being able to hear myself. You kind of get used to that when you're doing what we're doing. My name's Dave Strider. I'm a candidate for U.S. Senate here in the state of Washington. I am running because I got tired. I kept carrying all these promises, all these things, and I kept seeing all kinds of different things that were happening to our people. I saw people going to jail. In fact, I scheduled a lot of those people going to prison. My main concern is that we take back our freedom. Right now, we are not being represented. Maria Cantwell's record is something that is what I'm running against. Everything she stands for, I'm against. If she has something that she likes, I don't think it's a good idea. I'm running against Maria Cantwell. I'm really happy to see my counterparts here tonight and see your esteemed interview panel. I'm looking forward to tonight. We're going to discuss a lot of good issues, and we should have done this a whole lot more. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. All right, Steve Hoffman.
Hi, I'm Steve Hoffman. I'm running for Maria Cantwell's Senate seat as a Freedom Socialist Party candidate because I think that working people need another working person to represent them in Congress and who will fight for them. Right now, the Congress is run by millionaires and the billionaires run them, and it's all for the benefit of the rich and the corporations. So I think it's time working people rise up against that. And because they're asking us to take all kinds of nonsense as normal, like the fact, that the discrimination continues and that they're gutting the social safety net and they're going after our unions. And so, I want to build a campaign that helps to build a movement to stop all that, to defend our unions and our services. And I'm running on a platform. I'm running on a working class platform because I'm a working person myself. I'm a maintenance technician and an HVAC and electrical guy at North Seattle College for the last 27 years. I'm a shop steward in my union. I represent people on the job, represent women when they stand up to bullying, because there just happens to be a lot of bullying that happens on our campus. So I feel like that gives me, I'm a recording secretary for my local union, so I feel like that gives me ability to represent working people. So our program is based on the experience of the Freedom Socialist Party that's joined United Fronts and coalitions, and it takes on the capital system with things like making the banks a public utility or nationalizing the energy industry. Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to meet everybody.
Rhonda, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you so very much. So we're going to go ahead and get into our questions. I'm going to take the first segment, and I have about 4 questions I'll be asking each of you, and we'll take turns on who will answer first. We'll just kind of go around in a circle, and I'll call on you, whoever's next. So the first one we're going to get into is near and dear to my heart: anti-corruption. So the American Anti-Corruption Act is a model policy that sets a framework for city, state, and federal laws to fix our broken political system, and has 3 primary goals designed to limit the influence of money in politics by overhauling lobbying, transparency, and campaign finance laws. Have you endorsed the act yet? Is one question. And then what policy would you co-sign or create that would support this act? And let's go ahead and go with Gigi went first, so let's do Jeremy.
Okay, off mute. I do endorse the act. I think that any law of this type is going to be fought by the establishment. So I think one of the first things we have to do is get people in who will endorse, who will push, who will propose this kind of legislation. I think it's going to be fought tooth and nail by the establishment for the reason that they benefit from the current system. The first piece of legislation I would propose is that we cannot get citizens overturned in the Supreme Court. If we're going to treat money as speech, then we simply make laws at the state level that you can't have your name on the ballot if you don't meet reporting requirements. I'm not saying you can't take money, because we can't force that until we fix Citizens United. But I'm saying that you have to meet certain requirements, like full disclosure of where the money came from. Ad campaigns can't have paid for by this fund that was paid for by another fund that was chained backwards in order to be on TV. That's not limiting freedom of speech. That's just requiring full presentation. You can push that far enough that candidates, you can offer money to a candidate, but a candidate can't accept it. I think we have to fight the two-front battle. We have to fight against the Supreme Court's decision until it can be overturned either in law or in a constitutional amendment. But we also need to find ways, like every other law, that can be sliced and diced by professional skill. So the first law I would propose is, if it has been at the state level, saying to have your name and candidacy on the state ballot, you have to meet requirements for being public about where your money comes from, including disclosure beyond paid for by the fund for people who hide money for other people who hide money.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Dave Strider?
Dave, you're muted.
I got a feeling this is setting a trend for tonight. Anyway, corruption in our government, it's rampant. Money in our politics is rampant. How do we get rid of it? Well, guess what? You tell people this. We know what the laws are. All we have to do is enforce it. We have to have the spine to stand up and go, Mr. Ryan, your rules of austerity have done nothing but cripple the people. You have put in danger children and senior citizens by cutting back on Social Security and calling it an entitlement, something that we paid into all of our lives in working time. And then to tell us that we don't have the money to fund the things that we need, like childhood education and good nourishment. No, those are rules. That's corruption. They're paying somebody else. And what do we do for that? We issue subpoenas, we seize their properties, and then we take them to court like they have done us. Only we don't sit around. We give them a 90-day speedy trial. We have to go after it. We have to fight it. Okay, we can't take our time and talk about this and talk about that. We need action, and we need it now. Donald Trump talked about how he's going to do this and how he's going to do that. Well, I tell you what, I need 20 paralegals, and we can start writing these petitions, and we can start getting these people arrested, even maybe before the general election in November. But we have to step out and into it. I gave it all up back 40 years ago, and I'm doing it again. We have to have brazen activities, all within the confines of the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Steve Hoffman, your turn.
Okay. I don't know too much about the Anti-Corruption Act. I haven't endorsed it, but what you described sounds like something that makes a lot of sense. It's a good step. I think definitely transparency with the lobbying and public financing is definitely something I would support. After we get rid of Citizens United, because and we can have public financing, and that's what would be the best thing of all, I think, because it'll take all the corporate money out of the equation. And I think there's a lot of other reforms. I don't know if you're going to get into voting reforms, but we need proportional representation, or maybe instant runoff voting. I know there's some cities that are trying that. And so that way, it's not a thing where the two parties, people feel like they're throwing away the vote if they don't vote for one of the two parties that have the most money and the most corrupt. Basically, I think the problem with the two parties, I agree with the previous, with Dave, that the problem is the two parties, and the two parties are there to support and maintain capitalism, and capitalism by its very definition is corruption. I mean, it is a corrupt system that steals from the working class and gives to the rich, and that's bound to have a government that's corrupt unless you put in a lot of controls on it until you can get rid of capitalism.
Warning.
I mean, I think that's what I'd have to say about it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Gigi?
Gigi muted. I'm gonna do this all night.
Okay. I have signed on to the Anti-Corruption Act, and I've looked at why and how we've gotten to where we are. And the good part of that is that both the Democratic Party and which is the DNC Corporation, EOP corporations, are corporations. This is how we ended up with corporations are people, because those who set those laws and put those laws in place are a part of the problem. And it's going to take us breaking down and breaking apart those corporations before we're able to really bring about the change. They did not just do this with one act. The Citizens United was not one part of, or the whole. It was just one part that they had been building on over years with other smaller laws mixed in that we have to begin to break up. The Constitution does not have in any area that we need parties. The Constitution was set up for people to represent the people. It was not set up for us to be have a government where people in and stay in for life. We need to make it so that it is illegal to corrupt politicians. It is illegal for us to accept money from lobbyists. And one of the first things I would do is build a law so that lobbyists cannot come in and speak for organizations. The organizations can speak for themselves. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. So yes, the second part of the question is, well, another question of the second of the four is about proportional representation. So the American form of representative democracy is nearly 250 years old. In the times since, far more representative forms of government have been established, and we have failed to adapt to the modern world. What are your policies regarding proportional representation of the American people and a responsive, accountable government? Dave Strider, you're up first.
Muted.
Let's bring some comedy into the situation. Okay, that's why I have that mute button all messed up. I do believe in proportional voting for us, that we are represented, that we don't have districts that have large population bases or can be gerrymandered easy. I think that we need to be careful of that. But my biggest concern is that all we can do for this, make our voting right, is that as long as we have corruption, as long as we have people who can be bought, as long as our elections can be bought, as long as our elections can be gerrymandered, that is nothing short than, I'm going to use the word, you guys can agree with me or not, but I'm going to use it, treason. Our election service, we had treason committed on us 2016. We had it committed on us. And then we had it during the general election as well. Think about it, people. Read your history. We are not far from people saying, giving up. No one, if you're wondering how you're getting algorithms on your Facebook and everything, and how things doesn't seem to be getting met and people being reached, it's because, one, and this is not conspiracy theory, folks, it's the truth. I mean, I was on Facebook with a a friend of mine was playing piano. So I went on and I played my guitar on my campaign page. And of the people who showed up on the metrics
Morning.
that were measuring, it was not shown. Those people were not shown, comments were not registered or anything in the metrics. So how many people are we missing? How many people are missing because of something that, you know, our messages? And it's just not happening to me, but it's happening to our congressional district representatives. Sarah Smith, Dorothy Gasquet, Tambourine Borelli, Bob Hunziker, and who else? Yeah, around the country.
Time.
Thank you very much. Steve Hoffman, your turn.
Here, okay. Yes, I definitely support proportional representation because our system is so messed up because you have to have so much money to be, it's the whole first past the post system is you have to have an enormous amount of money in corporate support to get the most votes. And if a socialist party can get 10% of the votes, shouldn't they have 10% of the people in the legislature and the Congress? So that voice is represented and not ignored because the people, you know, the smaller parties don't have an enormous amount of money. And so I think it goes back to the public financing too. And I just think proportional representation would make everything a lot more, and more people would be really represented. And other things that we have to address with the electoral system is the whole system of how to make it a crime for people of color to vote. The way they gerrymander the districts, the way they do all the laws, the voter IDs, they know, the reactionaries know how to keep people of color from voting. And all working people should stand with black people and other people of color who are being assaulted in their voting rights and demand that the government should not discount their vote. I mean, that's totally racist, and we're a lot better than that. And it's not good for working people that some are.
Morning.
So anyway, I really do think proportional representation would be a good step. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Gigi, your turn.
Hi, I'm going back to the Constitution again. According to the Constitution, there should be representation for so many thousands of people. Our government has failed that greatly. I don't remember the numbers, but I do remember hearing with the numbers, there would probably be a position for each one of us in the Senate versus us having to run against one in the Senate if we use proportional representation. One of the issues that we have that Steve Hoffman is about how Blacks and other minorities are not represented in our government, which is the reason we have the issues that we have had. It has been planned and carried out very carefully to make sure the Black and minority vote is quieted as much as possible. One of the things that we really need to look at when we're looking at proportional representation is the fact that we have 14% of America are Black people. We have less than 1% of representation in our United States government. We need to look, what is the proportion of women in the United States, and what is the proportion of women serving in our United States government? We need to get rid of all the things that these two corporations have put into place to keep people suppressed in this country. And that is part of the reason I'm running as an independent, to break that down and to bring our voice, my voice, the people's voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. Jeremy Teuton.
Okay, I'm going to try and answer this and maybe address some of the points brought up by my fellow candidates. First, it's the House, not the Senate, that is proportional representation. Senate is assigned to each state. Fortunately, at the moment, the Senate is elected by the popular vote of the state. That amendment is actually one of the things that's also being challenged by people who want to be able to control our government. They want to be able to force the Senate to be elected by state houses again. State houses are subject to gerrymandering. Right now, you can't gerrymander the Senate because each state gets 2 senators. If you put it back into the state house's control, then you gerrymander the state, you gerrymander the state house, and you can gerrymander the Senate just as badly as you can the House. It's the House is supposed to be for every 50,000. This is the ratified but unrecognized First Amendment to the Constitution that Tyler and a few others are fighting to get recognized as ratified. Proportional representation. Yes, there are other systems in the United States that are arguably better, or at least more accurately representing the people. In the United States, we actually have laws that are fighting the way we're elected. The Senate and the House have forced first past the poll to be structural parts of our government. There are much better plans, single transferable votes, instant runoff. Fair.vote, I believe, is a website that has a fair amount of information on this. There are a bunch of better systems. The problem is that the people who benefit from the current corrupt system will never change that system. It's a chicken and egg argument. You can't fix the way we vote people in because the people that are in office will not allow that to be brought to a vote. One of the technological solutions I propose is something very similar to what we're doing right now. Bill Gates can pull $1 billion from an ATM in Bangladesh anytime he wants, and that's secure. We have a president who can run a nuclear war from anywhere on the face of the earth. There is absolutely no reason why House and Senate representatives need to be in Washington, D.C. as much as they are, surrounded by the national power structure and, of course, being basically a brothel for lobbyists. We could do the vast majority of our government's work remotely like this. All votes would be registered. All votes would be roll call votes. There'd be none of this trickery where a bill is released 24 hours before 2,000 pages have to be voted on. I'm out of time, so I'm going to take off.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. All right, our next question is housing justice. According to Amnesty International USA, approximately 3 million Americans have experienced homelessness for at least a few nights. In Grays Harbor, 1 in 16 people are homeless. What will you ensure that every American is assured of a basic right to housing? Or should I say, how will you ensure that every American is assured of the basic right to housing? Dave Strider goes to you first.
Dave, you're muted again.
Like I said, I'm setting a trend. You know something? 2011, I was homeless. Same thing in 2011. I coughed and I was paralyzed for over an hour. I laid there in pain for over an hour. The house that I helped purchase and everything else, I lost. I was a victim of domestic violence. That's right. My girl hit me. My girl hit me. Anyway, I survived. I survived on $200 a month and $200 in food stamps. I had my Tahoe and everything else. Now, we're talking about housing. We're worried about all these camps. We look everywhere in the country. I can tell you that I probably accounted for 90% of 10,000, or maybe 9,000 people, veterans, who are living on the street if they got a bad conduct discharge and were discharged through court system in North Carolina. That's why I've done some of the things that I've done. I've taken more of an active stance on homelessness. I've been there. I see people like that. When I see them on the street, can you guys register? Are you guys registered to vote? Can you vote? Yeah. Okay. And then I hand them one of my cards. I said, remember that name. I was like you 7 years ago. Now I did have people, friends people I didn't even know, people that I met on social media. A friend of mine in Canada sent me the money so I could get my car running. I needed a battery and license tabs. From Canada, he sent me the money and he did not want repayment. I was able to get out of that toxic situation. Not everybody is. We have people on the streets. We have people freezing. One night for a veteran on the street is unacceptable. One night for a child to go hungry or poisoned because of the water they drink is unacceptable. That's why I'm running for U.S. Senate.
Time.
I'm tired of it.
Thank you very much, Dave. Steve Hoffman.
Okay. I've been fighting with my union for housing justice. Our local union, Washington Federation of State Employees, Local 304, has been joining in coalitions with other groups in Seattle, the Housing for All Coalition, and pushing for rent control. And we went down to Olympia, try to get the rent control ban lifted in Olympia, and the Democrats threw that out, didn't even allow that to get to the floor. And so I will continue that fight. And one of the biggest things, I think we need to build one hell of a lot more public housing. I mean, because all the money is now gone into the wars and the tax cuts. And we used to have a lot more public housing, never enough. But I would close all those military bases around the world. And we spend more on the military than the next 8 countries combined. We could use that money to build a lot more public housing and Section 8 vouchers, and actually prohibit landlords from denying people Section 8 vouchers. And we could get a lot more people housed that way and keep their housing affordable. So that would be a major part of my thing. Also, I think we should pass laws against predatory landlords. And you know, the part of the coalition that our union is in is fighting for just eviction standards, just cause evictions.
Warning.
That's another thing. So anyway, cracking down on bad practices of landlords and a lot more public housing. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Gigi, your turn.
He did, but I wish he had said some story because Dave's tried out, but he didn't tell any policy. Can I have lighter?
Okay, thank you very much.
No, I didn't put any policy out there. I put experience, life experience in what millions of people in this nation are facing every day.
Right. I think she meant to be on mute. Apologize for that, Dave.
I'm so sorry, guys. That was my mistake.
So is that a part of my time or?
Nope.
Okay. So,
That's a boo-boo.
okay.
Go ahead and go, Gigi. Sorry
All
about
right.
that.
So housing, as I stated earlier, was something very near and dear to me because as a child, we had a problem with housing. My father and I were homeless. I've had a son that was an Iraqi veteran that was also homeless, and I was praying and crying one night because he was in Virginia with no place to go but sleeping in his convertible car, and it was freezing and the convertible was leaking. We need stronger landlord-tenant rights to protect the landlords and tenants. I also am very strong if we would raise, minimum wage has not been raised since 1970. And even at $15 an hour, it is not going to be enough money to take care of a family. I've been fighting for $15 an hour since 2012. Right now, minimum wage needs to be somewhere in the $20-something range. And though we have these corporations who say, I don't want to pay $20 or $12 or $15 to someone who's flipping burgers, they're taking in millions and millions and millions of dollars. Most people are not aware that the wages are 1 to 879. That is corruption, and that needs to be stopped. And those are part of laws and initiatives I would bring in to take care of people, because that would also enforce and give money to Social Security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gigi. And Jeremy.
So there's no structural easy fix. There are some important factors that people miss. There are more churches in the United States than there are homeless people. These are nonprofit entities, and yet there are more churches. If each church took one homeless person in, there would be no homeless people. We have more empty houses in the United States than we have homeless people. A family of 4 on the street could each be given a house. Literally, the mom, dad, and each child could be given their own house, and we would still have more empty houses. We would still have everyone housed. This is a structural problem with our country. We need a Marshall Plan for the United States to rebuild our country like we rebuilt Europe and Japan after World War II. The only way our infrastructure could be worse is if it had actually been bombed. What it has been done is it's had every resource stripped away from maintaining our country to maintain a giant military presence around the world. there is value to international bases, but I don't think Germany and France still need the United States to keep the Soviet Union off their doorstep. That country no longer exists. There is no easy fix. You can't tell landlords who own property that they have to rent to people. You can't give money to people and let them buy housing. All that would do is change the market. We have homelessness in San Francisco and Seattle and other major cities, not just because it's unaffordable, but because there literally aren't enough units for them. We need to start with a Green New Deal and a Marshall Plan for the United States. We need to work towards 100% employment in valid, useful work so that people can make a living rebuilding this country and literally making it a great first world nation again. That would go a long way to solving our problem. A ton of our homelessness is related to mental health problems. The United States destroyed mental health hospitals and defunded them. A large fraction of people who are homeless are diagnosed mental ill and either can't afford their meds or on medication that makes it impossible for them to afford housing. If they aren't on their medication, they can't keep work. We have this vicious cycle where if you're not employed, it's harder to get employment. All of these things need to be addressed. We can't just talk to landlords or hand out money. We need a systematic change as a nation. And the only way to get that is get representatives who aren't owned by people who benefit by keeping things as they are.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, final question for me. Healthcare. What is your stance on publicly administered single-payer universal healthcare, and what is your plan to ensure healthcare is a human right for all Americans? Steve Hoffman.
Okay. Actually, my view on healthcare is I think we should have a completely publicly provided and run and owned healthcare system. I think you look what the Cubans can do in their healthcare system, given the really sparse resources that they have, but theirs is all public and run to actually provide care instead of being an insurance system. And maybe we should contract the system out to the Cubans, I don't know. But single payer, I think, would be a good step forward because it would be a lot better than what we have now. And I mean, single payer would, enable people to, the system to bulk purchase drugs and bring down the price of the drugs. And it could be a universal care system. And I think that it would be really nice if you could go into a hospital and get, or a clinic and get health care because, you're just a human being and maybe you're sick. And that's the way it should be. And it shouldn't be, a big question of will the insurance cover it? What kind of insurance do you have? How, how are we going to bill you for it? I mean, it should be done. All the other civilized countries in the world have some kind of public health care system. And this has to become a civilized nation.
Warning.
And so, yeah, so I would support something like single payer and Medicare for all as a progress towards a completely publicly provided system. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Gigi, you're up next.
Definitely support single payer for all, and I don't see it as socialism. I think single payer for all is called humanity, to make sure everyone has the right to have medical. I don't think it's a right. I think it's a necessity. And I see our government using it as a means of, killing people and getting rid of those who are sick and those. I agree with some of the laws that are coming forth that Bernie has talked about with single payer health care. When we're looking at seniors and people having to choose between cat food, dog food, and medication, we're having serious issues. And right now, since Trump's been in office, even our veterans are not being fully cared for when they have cancer at the VA system. It is causing people, the more bankruptcies are filed, because of the medical that we have currently, and it's about corporations and not about people. And it's reversed. It needs medical needs to be more about the people, about humanity,
Warning.
and not about profit and corporations. And I think another people need to, a lot of the money that's going into our military is going into also pharmaceutical companies' hands. Thank you. And we need to end that.
Thank you, Gigi. Jeremy, your turn.
I think everybody here agrees that universal health care is the way we go. The simple matter is how we talk about it. First, people need to understand that the majority of people who lose everything, who go bankrupt because of medical expenses, had health insurance at the beginning of their illness. The VA system is in terrible shape, and a universal healthcare system would allow our veterans to go to any hospital and be treated. Veterans hospitals that are in good shape would become public hospitals. Veterans hospitals that are in bad shape would be closed. Veterans hospitals that are specialists for treating war-type injuries, explosive concussion, limb severed by high explosive, that sort of thing, these specialist facilities would be funded and maintained. The way we talk about universal healthcare needs to be changed. First, we need to make the fiscal conservative argument. Right now, between what private citizens pay in their premiums and their co-pays and what they pay in taxes, the United States already pays more for each citizen for healthcare than other nations that have universal health care. This is simply a fiscal conservative argument. Talking about things like it's a right or like it's a giveaway is also foolish. We formed society as humans so that the least of us or the best of us when they're injured would not be eaten by predators. Disease and injury are the last predators that still stalk humans. It's a simple function of society. We stop letting our children be eaten by wolves. We stop letting the chief of the tribe be eaten by wolves if he sprains his ankle and falls behind. As a group, we stick together. We make sure everyone gets back on their feet. Universal healthcare is just the same argument. This is it. That's it. I don't think anyone here is going to argue against this. It doesn't have to be Medicaid for all. Japan and Germany have systems that look a little bit more like private insurance. They are not. They're well regulated, which is something ours fails. People forget that the United States, it was against the law to profit.
Warning.
It was against the law in the United States to profit as a health insurance provider until 1970, when Richard Nixon changed the law. And there's this great audio tape of Nixon in the White House talking to Kaiser Permanente's representative. He looks back, not being a very bright man, and says, "So let me get this straight. The less care you provide, the more money you make." And the Kaiser representative says, "Yes, Mr. President," at which point Nixon says, "Well, okay then," signed the law. That was 1970, United States. We can go back to a system where we don't strip mine money out of people who are sick.
Time.
Thank you, Jeremy. And all right, Dave.
Oh, yay!
I did it right this time. And I'm going to let everybody know. I received 100% VA care. Okay? This past summer, 2017, I busted open and had myself 3 hernias. I got tested. I was going to get these hernias repaired January 30th, 2018, but under the conditions that I quit smoking. I quit smoking with the help of the VA. Oh, by the way, I can go to any hospital in the country, anywhere, with this card. With that card. I can go anywhere in the country. I receive excellent care. They postponed the surgery for the hernia repairs January 30th because they did a CAT scan. They found out that I was diagnosed with cancer of the left kidney. It's done. April 12th, removed, out, everything, no chemo, VA healthcare. You privatize my VA, I'm coming after you. So are 9 million other veterans. When a veteran says they're not getting healthcare, that's a lie. When a veteran says I'm not being treated, follow through, soldier. Plain and simple. I'm tired of the lies being told about the Veterans Administration. You want to see my medical records? I'll show them to you. I'm not giving you guys a need to go get a HIPAA release. I'll let you know it. I'll put it online.
Warning.
So don't be telling lies about my Veterans Administration. Yes, we do need single health care system, just like the health care I received from the Veterans Administration. Plain and simple. Thank you.
Thank you so much, so much. My portion
Oh,
is
by the way,
finished.
I'm really healthy too. Look,
I love it. Good job.
and I didn't take a lot of opioids. I still had a couple seconds. I squeezed them in there, Rhonda.
That works. So my time is done for right now. Supreet's going to take over with her set of questions. So Supreet, please take that away.
Yep, Courtney, are you ready with the timer so I can start? And ready to unmute yourself when you have to warn us to? Okay, all right. So I'm sorry for the boo-boo earlier, and here's, I was just talking to my husband, and anyway. So my first question is on infrastructure. The American Society of Civil Engineers recommends a $2 trillion investment just to close the 10-year investment gap that we have. And as we face the economy of the future, what are your plans for America's infrastructure? Let's start with, I think we went all the way around now. Gigi again.
If she went first last
Okay.
Wait, who went first last time?
I started first, and one of the things we keep doing is leaving Jeremy as last.
So if we can start with Jeremy first.
Okay, it was, yeah, okay. All right, Jeremy, go ahead, answer the infrastructure question. What's your plan for fixing America's infrastructure?
So, okay, first, we need a Green New Deal. We need to do the kind of employment that we did at the end of the Great Depression. When I talk about investments in infrastructure, I mean, we need to fix all of our bridges. We need no pipes with lead getting water into US citizens' bloodstreams. But we also need to talk about infrastructure for the 21st century, the 22nd century. We need fiber all over the country for everyone, the same way we made phone lines available for everyone. This is a very simple argument. 21st century, an audit of the Pentagon just found $21 trillion missing. $21 trillion roughly equates to the entirety of the US national debt. We keep talking about this money like it's something the US government doesn't have full control over. If there's $21 trillion missing from the Pentagon, we treat it like an electronic transfer that never occurred. We treat it like a bank error. We credit that money back to the United States government. First, we use it to refill the Social Security Trust Fund. Then we use it to clear as much of the debt as possible. If they find receipts, if they find other actions that prove that they actually spent the money, we go ahead and reborrow that money out in bonds, and we recredit it to an account that's already been debited. Treating the U.S. economy as though it's this isolation or that the U.S. dollar will always be the world's reserve currency is a foolish idea. It's led us to trade deficits with countries that treat their currency with much more control than we treat ours. The petrodollar is basically one of the reasons why we continue to get petrochemical infrastructure. Bernie, I think you went off mute.
Because I'm going to say warning in 3 seconds.
All right. No, this is very simple. We need a Green New Deal, and we need a Marshall Plan for the United States. We need to start investing in our own country. It's not giving away money. It's national defense. There's no country to defend if the bridges are falling into the ocean. There's no country to defend if children in Flint, Michigan, and in Texas and other cities are getting lead poisoning levels that are worse than eating lead chip paint out of their city water. That's my proposal for going forward. We reassign money from where it's missing back to the U.S. Treasury. We reassign spending priorities. That's it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Dave now. Dave, you're muted.
Okay, so I start all over again. Infrastructure, employment. I'd like to propose to you all, not a universal basic income, but a full job guarantee. A full job guarantee, which means that you're going to get paid no matter where you move in the country. If you resettle or whatever, you'll have that constant income that's available to you. Now, at the same token of having, your single payer health care, which is also going to be able to travel with you anywhere in the country, suddenly we have a very mobile workforce. We have a mobile workforce that not only has top health care, but they also have an income, there's motivation, and they take the threat out of a corporation threatening them with termination. Threats, don't get it. Also, we can also stop some of the discrimination that women are experiencing as far as how much money they make. But our infrastructure is really lacking. I believe that when Sarah Smith this past 2017, she was in a debate with Adam Smith. And she cleaned his clock. He said, yeah, $200 billion to fix the infrastructure. That's when Sarah came back and said more like 4.1 trillion. And she's absolutely right. My first spending bill from the Senate floor is $14+ trillion in the first year without adding 1 cent to our national debt.
Warning.
Our national debt right now is what? It's a combination of our savings accounts, FDIC certain accounts, as well as those treasury bonds, which can be paid off. We are a fiat money system. We print our own money. We cannot go broke. Everybody's wondering why Japan can do 2%. It's because they spend 250% on their people. We can do $100 trillion a year to catch up with all the austerity that's happened since Ronald Reagan.
Time.
Oops, sorry. Next is, I think it's done now, Steve Hoffman.
Yes, yeah, I think this infrastructure is in sorry shape, that's for sure. And we need to fund a massive rebuilding of the infrastructure to put people back to work. We need to immediately repeal those tax cuts that they passed for the rich and the corporations and increase the taxes back to something like that raging radical Eisenhower did, which was up to more like 70% for the top income brackets. And I think we could also get plenty of funding by dismantling the war machine and redirecting that spending. And the soldiers could be retrained to instead rebuild the infrastructure. A big part of the infrastructure we need to redo is the energy infrastructure. That needs to be done. We need to move away from fossil fuels and go to a sustainable energy sources fast. And so I think we could nationalize the entire energy industry, put it under the workers' control, and then that would remove the profit incentive in fossil fuels, and we could redirect all that energy and all that labor and money into sustainable energy. And also, I think we'd have public ownership of the banks would help. I think it's in North Dakota, I believe they have a state bank, and they fund their infrastructure with that, and the profits and the interest was plowed back into doing more infrastructure.
Warning.
Yeah, and so we could do public ownership of the banks on a national level and do things like build a sustainable energy and infrastructure and a lot more really affordable housing, instead of just making fat cats on Wall Street rich.
Thank you, Steve. Gigi?
I agree on a lot of parts of the infrastructure, but we need to move to a more green structure, buildings that are green. I've been working with a young lady where they're building something like a city in Olympia, where they're showing the way homes are currently being built. We're losing 90% of our heat and energy through the type of structures that we currently have. We need to build structures, build homes, build buildings, build office buildings to where they are green, and therefore it's going to save on energy, but also to retrain people in our unions, and it will create new jobs for everyone when we begin to move towards the green infrastructure. Our roads, there's ways to build our roads and our bridges, all green and strong, without also killing with all the plastic that we have that's bringing in all the garbage and destroying. There's ways we can even recycle the plastics and the garbage to be able to use those in doing our infrastructure. And again, that brings in more jobs. And anytime you're bringing people with jobs, they're able to take care of themselves. And I would like to say, as far as the VA, I have 3 family members, and what I was talking about with the VA and cancer, a friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer He and his wife are strong. They've been strong financially, and she's had to go back to work. And all of this, the doctors have said, is because of what Trump has done with our medical. They're messing with the veterans' medical, and I'm hot about it. But we still need a green infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi, and thank you everybody for your answers on this. I really appreciate that, especially mentions of Flint, because it's been 4 years since people in Flint have had clean water. So I'd like to move on to the next question, which is on income inequality. Income inequality now is worse than the pre-depression era. What immediate and structural changes do you believe are necessary to correct this in policy positions? Let's start with this time. I'm sorry, I have to do the math. Dave, I think you're first this time. Yeah?
So before I start talking, I'll make sure I'm new. How do we change that ratio?
Immediate
mentioned,
and structural change to income inequality.
Yes, to income inequality. But in the meantime, let's talk about that full job guarantee. Let's talk about the elimination of student debt all the way, straight across. And then those who, in the last 40 years, because Joe Biden got his so cheap, those people who had student loans and debt in the last 40 years, they get recompensated for that education that they received that was over and above what Joe paid for his. And you get that back. This is money that's going to go right back into the economy. Those people who have paid for their education already, they get that. They're going to do a new room extension. Maybe they're going to do a vacation. Maybe they're going to buy a house for the first time. So all that money back. Education, like I said, fiat money system. We can spend $20 trillion on education and it not be nothing but better places for our people to move upward. Not be confined because of they have special needs or whatever. The teachers, the educators, not the administrators. I'm tired of them making too much money. The teachers need to be compensated so they don't have to take money out of their wages. If they want to throw a party for their class, good. But they should not be forced to buy supplies. Education first.
Morning.
All funded by the federal government. Income equality. As soon as we get the education curve going back in the upward trend, where we're actually becoming one of the smarter nations again, we need to have that income inequality. That's a full job guarantee. We can address all those taxes issues. We talk about taxes. Just remember, federal taxes do not pay for federal funding. Okay? April 15th, they deleted everything we paid in. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Steve, you're up next.
What are you
The income inequality has gotten absurd. I mean, it's like in the last 40 years, the productivity of workers is increased by almost double, and yet wages have stagnated or gone down. That's what capitalism looks like, right? It's totally irrational. So how to address it? I think a huge increase in the minimum wage. You know, if the minimum wage started in 1968, and if it had been indexed for inflation, it would be $22 right now. So we should raise it up to that, like Gigi was saying. And then the rich, we have 2 richest dudes in the world living right in our neighborhood. I mean, we got to tax those people a hell of a lot more. I mean, they used, like I said before, they used to pay a lot higher taxes back in in Eisenhower's time. And so we need to really tax them a lot more and tax the corporate profits a lot more. And we should tax any corporate profits that they're taking out of the country or outsourcing people's jobs. That should all be taxed at a big fee to stop the outsourcing, but also to raise funds to provide public services and public housing if we had a lot more of that. But the biggest anti-poverty program is organization of unions. Right? This is what is really going to force the capitalists to pay working people what they deserve. Right? And we have to stand up to all these laws. We have to pass labor law reform with teeth that makes severe retaliation, severe penalties for retaliation against union organizers. We got to stop right to work. We got to take on groups like the Freedom Foundation and drive them into the sea, which I have been working on with Organized Workers for Labor Solidarity. So we need the right to organize unions and get busy doing it.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer, Steve. Gigi, you're up next.
Income inequality comes from many, many sources. And one of the top ones is losing our unions. When we began to build, America began to build unions, is when America began to have a middle class. And without unions, America has lost the middle class the more we lose unions. And the unions have to be governed so that they don't also become corruptible, has happened. However, the unions are the best way to help with that. The income inequality also is how they pay and how they decide minorities get paid less, especially Black and brown men get paid less on the scale. Or even poor white men get paid less on the scale. Women are making 79 cents on the dollar. We need to equal pay for equal work. If we have equal pay for equal work, that is going to stop the income inequality. Jobs, we have to raise that minimum wage. And I believe we need to start at 15 and raise it to where it needs to be, not work it to get to 15. Because 15 even today is not going to keep a family house. We're having, what would I do immediately and structurally? Immediately, I would put minimum wage at $15 an hour, period. And give tax for small businesses. And that's businesses that have 12 or less employees. Give them tax breaks in order to be able to pay that $15 an hour to their employees without them hurting and putting them out of business. That's a structural change that I think we can do, and we can do very easily, because right now it absolutely makes no sense that people can work 3 jobs and still not have enough money to take care of their families. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer, Gigi. Jeremy, you're up next.
Okay, so Gigi's absolutely right that minimum wage should have been indexed. It shouldn't be just picked at a number. It should be picked at a number that reflects reality and then indexed to inflation. I have written and have a proposal for a full rewrite of the US tax code. Basically, money is the lifeblood of our economy. It's the system that we've built, that we exchange things. Instead of trading goods and services, we change money. Every time somebody extracts money from the environment, it's like extracting lifeblood from a human body or oil from an engine. Trickle down doesn't work, but building up does. The US tax code encourages businesses to hoard money to pay off to supporters. We lower their tax rate, we lower the tax rate. Eisenhower had it right when he taxed the highest tax rate at 90%. Businesses did not pay tax on their profits before they paid their workers. They paid tax on their profits after they paid their workers. If the tax rate is 90% and your choice is invest in my business, invest in my workers, or lose 90 cents on the dollar to the government, businesses grow, businesses build, businesses invest. As for taxing or we need laws that prevent people from offshoring, but the easiest way to do that is not to try and catch them doing it. It's to pass a law that says you can't sell any product in the United States that wasn't made under conditions that match our environmental and our worker safety requirements. If you're going to build crap in China, that's fine, but you're going to do it with power plants that don't pollute the hell out of the atmosphere. You're going to do it with steel mills that don't dump mercury into the river. That would drive the price of Chinese steel up and make American steel competitive. No tariffs, no anything else, and no Chinese citizens as part of the steel they're shipping to us. Income inequality is not a function of male versus female, black versus white. It's a function of 1% versus the rest of us. They make all the money because they don't get taxed on income. Investments are treated differently than income. My tax code does not allow that. It treats all money, no matter how you made it, the same. And it has multiple brackets that are based on something in reality, not just random numbers. They're based on federal poverty, and each tick up goes up in percentage. It's a little bit too complex for the last 10 seconds, but that's how you deal with income inequality.
Thank you for your answer, Jeremy. Those are all excellent answers. Everybody was prepared for income inequality. That's how you know this is a Bernie-crat debate. So economy. NAFTA cost Americans 700,000 jobs. And despite the lack of popular support, TPP has re-entered the national debate. If elected, would you vote for any of these so-called free trade agreements? If yes, why? And if no, what is your alternative? Oh, sorry, I forgot. This time it's Steve Hoffman.
No, I would not vote for free trade agreements. That is something that the Democrats seem to be pretty good at, but it's not something I'm going to do, because I think you're right. They're pit workers all over the world in a vicious race to the bottom against each other, right? And so we have to totally redo that system. I would actually totally get rid of the WTO, right? I mean, what we need is to negotiate trade rules where unions and workers' organizations, peasants' organizations, women's organizations from all these different countries come together and they figure out what is fair and what's going to be sustainable development for everyone, and who's going to lift everyone up and give them a fair wage and a decent life. And the corporations just don't need to be in the room. Just keep them out, right? Because they're only going to rig it like they have already to their benefit to maximize their profit. So I think we should have a whole different trading system, and I would definitely not vote for any free trade agreements because they've been a disaster. Thanks.
Thank you for your time, Steve. Gigi.
I was on the front lines fighting the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and that was before I saw what NAFTA did in Port Angeles and all the factories that were shut down in Port Angeles after the NAFTA trade deal. Some of the, couple of the areas that I thought on fixing that, and something that I've said before and people thought I was crazy, but I'm going to stick with it, is instead of moving corporations and countries, I think these corporations can build in other countries, just like McDonald's. You go to any country, you see a McDonald's. It was built in that McDonald's was built in that country by those people. It's being serviced and money is being generated by those people, by the people in whatever country that is. And if we go into where our businesses, a lot of our businesses are able, there's enough people in the United States for us to be able to keep our businesses going, and the larger businesses that want to do the trades, let them build corporations in the other countries, income into those countries, and would bring up poverty. It would give jobs in other countries. We wouldn't have to worry about the immigration problems because people wouldn't need to worry about immigrating if they were able to have jobs, safety, and money in their own countries. Now, I know there are some countries we can't do that, but we still need to do that where we can, so that there's equitability across the world. And this would also help with the fear factor that our government likes to put into people, to pull so much fear, which allows them to say, oh, they're coming after us, so we have to have war, which makes us need the industrial complex. If we're working conjointly with companies and other countries, I think that will take that out, and that will help a lot of infrastructures.
Thank you, Gigi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. Next up is Jeremy. No, is it Jeremy? Yes, it's you.
Okay, so Gigi makes an excellent point. Our current trade policy is both exploitive and extractive to the third world. We take their best and their brightest to our universities, and they want to stay here as doctors, as lawyers, as professionals, so those countries don't develop. We exploit their workers left, right, and center, so those countries don't have enough of a middle class or the ability to build a middle class. I would start with the concept that I mentioned in the last question of fair trade versus free trade. FAIR basically says you can't sell something here by exploiting a worker or exploiting the environment in the third world. So we do that. So I'm not in favor of any of the current free trade treaties. For the TPP specifically, it is a 6,000-page document. I have not read the whole thing because no one actually has. But it's the first 2,000 pages are a NAFTA-esque free trade document that are terrible. The remaining 4,000 pages are a document that grants special rights to foreign nationalities, foreign countries, over and above U.S. law. A group that I worked with in Seattle, Seattle Against Slavery, pointed out that we have laws that prevent the United States from trading with nations that are known to have a slavery problem. With TPP, a nation that was blocked from trading with the United States or a company in that nation could sue the United States for the money they lost because they were using slaves and we wouldn't trade with them, and they would win in our courts. So I would go one step further than refusing the TPP or any other fair trade. I would revoke the fast track. I would retake the Senate's responsibility and the Senate's power. Our leaders have failed civics when they talk about a co-equal branch of government. The House and the Senate is the strongest branch of the federal government. They've given up their power to regulate war to the president. They've given up their power to regulate treaties to the president. That's the reason why we don't have a co-equal. No, the most powerful branch of government is the legislative. We can change the law to overrule the Supreme Court. We can veto the president. We can change the laws. We regulate the money and we regulate war.
Warning.
That has to return to the Senate. That has to return to the House. That has to return to the people. So no, I'm against fair trade laws. I'm in favor of free trade. I'm against the TPP. I'm against the fast track. I'm against the authorized use of military force. The House and the Senate have to become the most powerful branch again, or our government is going to become a dictatorship.
Hi, I think, Jeremy, you meant you're against free trade and for fair trade. You mixed them up when you were closing, based on what you said before. So Dave, you're up next.
Fair trade, free trade. Well, free trade, that means I guess it's not going to cost us anything. Let's just get it right. When we go into bargaining with another country as far as business in another country, we should be able to bargain with that country based on what? A good product, a fair price. Like I said, I was in Thailand 2 weeks, and I lived there for a year. And in that 2 weeks, I didn't see a bunch of people suffering financially, but I see a bunch of people back here in the United States suffering because of the NAFTA, because of trade deals that have gone south on us. They say they try to blame everything on offshore. We had requests for people to bring a Harley Davidson motorcycle buckle, and the only one I could find was made in China at a Harley Davidson store. People want that tag, made in America. We've lost that. We can bring that back. We can bring that back, but our corporations have got to be penalized for all of that they've done to make a quick buck. When Mitt Romney and Barack Obama were debating during the presidential election there, Romney's company that he was part ownership or influenced with was shipping a factory overseas to China. And the people had the indignation of having to help take stuff down and then help them install it and then show them how to work it. There is no free trade or fair trade if the people are not considered. The worker here in America. So it was mentioned earlier, I don't know who said, but we have the workers. We can supply our own needs and everything else. And people are going to like it. They're going to go to buy us another product if it's cheaper, but just as good. They're going to do it. We've got to be careful.
Thank you.
Thank you for your answer, Dave. Steve, you're up.
I believe Steve started it off.
I think I started.
Oh,
off.
you started it, so we went all the way around.
Get rid of the WTO.
Yeah. Okay, so my next question is on racial justice. I believe every answer, every question that is asked should be about race in America. But according to Newsweek, in 2017, 1,129 people were shot by the police. 1/4 were Black men, even though they comprise only 13% of the total population. We expect a senator from the state of Washington to have a clear and definitive plan to correct this immediately. What is yours? Jennifer, you're up first.
Hi. One of my definite first plans is to get rid of the laws that protect police officers from saying, I was scared. You are not scared when a man's hands are held over his head and he is saying, I am a therapist, and you shoot him dead. You are not scared when a person tells you in their car that they have a weapon, they have a license, and they're sitting, you can see their hands, and you shoot them and you get away with it. You are not scared when you go into a park and children are playing and there's no weapon, and you shoot that child and say you felt intimidated and scared. That's one of the first issues we need to look at. Why are they killing and stop killing our Black men, our children, and getting away with it? When they begin to go to jail, when the police officers begin to go to jail and have to pay the price for killing our Black and brown men and our children, they will stop killing unnecessarily. That's all I have to say. Put them where they need to be.
Thank you, Gigi. Jeremy, you're up next.
Okay, so we need police accountability. We need body cameras 100% of the time. And this is one of those things where I get stuck as a white person saying this. I love the phrase Black Lives Matter. I love the phrase all lives matter because importantly, I've never heard a Black person in a Black Lives Matter protest say only Black Lives Matter. I've never heard that. In fact, when a poor white man in Utah who had a small criminal history was shot dead, unarmed, in I believe it was a convenience store or a gas station parking lot, the first group that showed up to support his family and raise awareness that an officer shot a young white man who'd done nothing wrong in this instance was Black Lives Matter. This group is not racist. They're not fighting for one group or another. They're fighting to end corruption. They're fighting to end a treatment of our police as an occupying army instead of peace officers. In the gun control argument, I hear people talking about how no citizen needs a fully automatic weapon. I happen to agree with that. But they say no citizen, and they make it sound like it's acceptable for police officers to have this. I don't understand why we have police officers showing up in desert and jungle camouflage on duty as uniforms. Camouflage is so you're not seen. Police officers need to be present and visible. If I'm at a public protest or a public event, I want to see police officers present. I want to see officers who respond to their community, who people support and protect them. When someone threatens a police officer, it should be because that person is a criminal, not because the police are suspect and the enemy. We need uniforms that look like uniforms. We need police not using military-style gear. And we need to spend all of the money that we would spend on giant tires for anti-mine armor-resistant vehicles.
Warning.
Our police officers. The United States spends the least on professional development and training. We have the lowest requirements to be a police officer of any first world nation. Countries that do not arm their police officers have higher standards for shooting accuracy than we do. The average British police officer who's not issued a firearm is held to a higher standard of gun accuracy than the US police officers who are issued firearms at all times. This is idiotic. We get what we pay for and we're not paying enough. We get what we allow to happen and we're allowing police to go unaccountable. All of this has to be addressed.
Timer.
Thank you for your answer, Jeremy. Dave, you're up next.
Initiative 940, initiative that we put here in the state of Washington to get out a de-escalation of law enforcement. And that was something that I also promoted across the country. I said, if you don't have Initiative 940 on your ballot, you need to get it. Come to this website, and I put that website out there while I was doing my nightly blogs. We need to stop it. I get to shoot when my sons come and see me or I go see them. Every 4 years, I get to shoot. And at 25 yards with different size pistols, my group is like this. Yes, I'm a Marine expert with weapons. But these are police officers who shoot all the time. I told you I shot maybe every 4 years. They're cowards, shooting men in the back, shooting women and beating women and doing cavity searches on these women. They're cowards. A lot of them are white supremacists. You talk about it, I've got 20% of my family who are Black. I've got another 25% of people in my family that are Latino and other brown-skinned, beautiful people. And I worry about them. I worry about them all the time. And I'm sick and tired of seeing pictures of men running, even though they had maybe a warrant open. It doesn't make any difference. You are not judge, jury, and executioner. That is cowardice. And if I was a judge sitting on that bench, I would have given you the same thing that you gave them, the death penalty. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of you for all the excellent answers. This is it for my part. I would like to pass it off to Courtney. Courtney, take it away, and I'll get ready with the timer.
Thank you. All right.
Did I get to answer that?
Oh,
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Gigi that these police officers got to start going to jail for what they're doing. And I think definitely I agree with demilitarizing the police. It was the Obama administration sent all these weapons and all these tanks and armored personnel carriers. They should all be taken back and gotten rid of. And I don't think that the police need assault rifles to kill as many people, citizens and residents and non-citizens as fast as they can. I think one of the things we should foster throughout the country is elected civilian review boards over the police. That is something where it's an elected board. It's not appointed by the mayor or the, and by the police department, but it's elected and it's got real teeth. It's got the ability to subpoena officers and subpoena witnesses. It's got the ability to discipline and fire officers and recommend prosecution of officers who are bad cops, who are violent towards people. And really, that's just a reform. I just think that the whole system of capitalism rests on racism. It's a pillar of the capitalist system. And so capitalism couldn't survive without the super exploitation of people of color and they use racism all the time to do that.
warning.
And so that is something we got to grapple with, but the elected civilian review board is one way to start. And our party, Freedom Socialist Party, is actually organizing with community members in New York City to actually get a elected community review board.
Thank you, Steve. I'm sorry for missing you before. Thank you for catching that. Take it away from me, Courtney. I'm messing up.
All right. Supreet, you must be tired. You never mess up. Thank you for joining us, of course, again and still. I will be talking more about environment and a few other things. So the first question, though, is about murdered and missing Indigenous women. Hundreds of Native American and Alaskan Native women are currently missing in the state of Washington alone. This issue has not received the attention it demands. What immediate as well as structural plans do you have to support Native American communities on this and other serious issues? And yeah, sorry, we'll start with Jeremy.
So just recently, there was a Hoffman state where it was 12 hours before a full police report was made of a missing.
Hold on 1 second. Courtney, could you mute yourself because there was echo, and I'll start again. Go ahead, Jeremy.
So we just recently had an issue in Washington state where there was a Native American girl who was missing for 12 hours before the proper channels were even linked between police. It was another 24 hours before an Amber Alert was out. I got multiple tweets and multiple Facebook notifications this girl was missing before an Amber Alert went out in Washington state. We have a system in place that can find an elderly gentleman who gets lost and is off his meds. We have a system in place that finds kidnapped children, almost immediately notifying anyone of any car that was suspect in the area. There is absolutely no reason that system should not be 100% connected to every police department in the state, including Native American police departments on reservations, which is where the first report came in. It's not talked about and it's not acceptable, but somehow abuse of and neglect of Native American citizens is the last remaining unspoken, uncritiqued, unresponded to racism in the United States. It looks at the way the First Nations are treated in Canada and the way they're treated in the United States. The water protectors in the DAPL protest got zero coverage. We allowed multiple police agencies from multiple states to converge on a different state and be paid with tax dollars from different states to attack a peaceful protest. At the same time, or nearly the same time, a group of white men with weapons took over a wildlife refuge in Oregon and got 24/7 news coverage that made sure that despite the fact they were openly committing a criminal act and grabbing federal land and were armed to the teeth, nothing violent happened and there was no attempt to force them to lay down their
Warning.
And yet the Dakota Access Pipeline water protectors were attacked with water hoses in sub-freezing weather, were attacked with rubber bullets that destroyed a woman's arm. And it got basically ignored because these were Native Americans. The Trump administration is destroying Native land and removing national monuments that include sacred Native American sites, and it's not being talked about. We're too busy worrying about, at least the mainstream media is too busy worrying about slights by and against Trump than what his administration is actually doing to people of color, to Native Indigenous.
Thank you, Jeremy. And Dave?
Thank you. I'd like to say one thing. Crimes against humanity have no statute of limitations. Crimes against the people of this United States have no statute of limitations. I think the Israeli secret police and Nazi hunters proved that there were no statute of limitations on genocide that was committed against the Hebrew nation. So having said that are happening to these young women, indigenous women, I mean, our government hasn't helped any. What have they done? They let the rights of a sovereign nation be abridged. They let mercenaries come into this nation and start a proxy war against our first people. When Congress makes a treaty, that becomes law. And when you violate the sovereign nation of a first people, yes, they were defeated via our manifest destiny, and then they were even intruded on and invaded once again, called by eminent domain. I'm telling you this right now, as a sovereign nation, they have no rights to intrude upon that sovereign nation. They have no rights. That is an act of war, and our Congress has allowed proxy wars against our first people. It is time that you and I, and that's what I plan on doing, because I'm going to tell you something. I don't back down from a good fight. When I know you're wrong, I'm going to be in your face. Crimes against the first people, that's crimes against humanity. And we let corporations do it. I say we take all the corporations, seize them. The pipeline's already erupted. I was part of that team that went out there to the Dakota. I was back here in the rear, logistics, making sure the word got out. It's an act of war against our first people.
Time.
Thank you. And Steve?
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a horrible crime. I mean, it's like I believe that indigenous women have the highest rate of violence against them of any group. And, this is an ongoing genocide that's been happening. This country was built on the foundations of genocide and slavery. And this is something that's going to take a lot to reverse. It's sort of, unfortunately, a part of our history for so long. I think that this should become a priority for the Department of Justice, wherever it happens off the reservations. They should be prioritizing this struggle and to stop this and to prosecute these crimes. And it needs to be, they send funds to a lot more funds to the tribal police so that they can and help them enforce the laws against all this. I mean, I think that they need to make it I'm sure that the tribal police would like to make it more of a priority, but they're probably cash strapped. So they need a lot of help for that. So I do think that, I do believe, like Dave, that Native American sovereignty should be respected, and that the treaties that the U.S. government signed, they should be living up to them, right? It's sort of like now we have, anyway, so, and the U.S. government is responsible for investigating and prosecuting these crimes against indigenous women. But I just think, yeah, I'd be interested in what everybody else has to say about that, but it's definitely not prioritized enough now, that's for sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. And Gigi.
Okay, I got it done. I couldn't get that unmuted. I have to add to the murderous and indigenous women to Black women. I was just at a conference where we said, say their names, because it's not noted at all. You have figures of the murderous and indigenous women. We do not have all the numbers for Black women who have been murdered, kidnapped, or taken away. I want to say one issue with that I fear is sex trafficking. And I have, in the study of sex trafficking, I have learned that they truly like to take Black and brown women to use for sex trafficking and child sex trafficking. And so a lot of people are not aware that Washington State is #1 now in the world, not the States, in the world for sex trafficking. And that goes to the same plan of the murderous and indigenous women as well as Black women. So say their names. The No DAPL. I am really, as I go through, I was again on the front lines here, protesting No DAPL from Vancouver to Bellingham, against No DAPL, for the protection of the water, for the protection of the women, for the protection of the people. There is a Senate Select Committee for Indian Affairs, and the Senate Select Committee of Indian Affairs needs to be on top of this. Senator Cantwell is on that committee, and we have not heard one word from her on this issue, nor did we hear a word from her on the No DAPL issue. If I'm elected as Senate, you would hear from me, and you would not need a phone call from enough people for me to take action and to speak out and speak up and do something about things that are just wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. All right, my second question is about violence. American culture is thoroughly saturated with militarism from our military's 8 current unconstitutional foreign wars to police forces that look like occupying armies and an escalating epidemic of gun violence. How do you plan to confront this harsh reality? And we will start with Steve, please.
Okay, I think we have to shut down the military machine. A lot of this, I believe, the promotion of this violence is a preparation of young people for war. And I think we have to confront that and put an end to it. It's all the advertising, and they have bands that go around with video games. The Army does. The way they recruit is appealing to a very hyper masculine mentality that they're installing. So I think in the schools we can provide much better education and have more smaller class sizes and a lot more services and counselors in schools to help catch young kids before they become isolated and very angry and before they become violent. And a lot more mental health care to keep people from falling into that sort of very isolated and angry state where they act out in a violent way. A lot of people are talking about gun control now, and I am not generally for gun control, too much gun control, because I do believe we have to maintain the Second Amendment, and I do believe that at times many communities need guns to defend themselves, like the Black community did to have to defend themselves against the Ku Klux Klan during the civil rights era. Though I am open to a ban on assault weapons. because, you know, I mean, I had a gun when I was pretty young, like 14, but it was a shotgun. Do people need assault weapons? Though I do agree, if we have assault weapon ban, it should also be a ban for the police and the military.
Time.
Thank you, Steve. And Dave, can we talk to you next?
Cool. Counterattack.
Courtney, I think.
I'm all messed up, but we're going to get to all of you.
I am too. My wife calls me a fine mess. Gun control, do we need it? Yeah. Do we need mental health? Yes, we do. I mean, I'm 65. I'll be 66 this October when I'm elected to the Senate. And I figure I've got 2 terms in me. Term limits, that's going to be it. But when I was a young man, we had shotguns and rifles, you know, lever action rifles to punch out, you know, 7 or 8 shots really, really fast. We didn't have problems with arms. We didn't have trouble with that kind of thing. Our society has gotten away from the things that I grew up with. I mean, yeah, I went through the civil rights moment, you know, when Kennedy was assassinated. I mean, shoot, I was 11 years old, coming home from school because I was misunderstood. Somebody thought it was my mom who was calling them names. Same kids the day before were hanging out in our apartment. We're not communicating enough to each other. You want violence? You want to see hell? Well, me and about 9 million of my brothers and sisters, we can show you. We'd much rather you not have to. We'd much rather see our military back and repurposed. I've used this term repurposed. That does not mean that we're cutting our military down. We're just not going to spend all the money on them. We're going to use our military to do what? Things that they're good at. Construction, laying cable.
Warning.
So we're good. You know, we repurpose our military. We don't need police out there in combat gear. I grew up in the Barney of Mayberry, you know, with what was his name? Barney Fife, and it was Andy of Mayberry. I grew up in that era. I didn't worry about myself. Curfews, we were told there was one, but nobody ever enforced it. We need to go back. We need to step back. We need to listen to each other a lot more.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
And Gigi?
Man, it always seems like it's my turn to talk. Okay. I think there is a huge difference between unconstitutional wars and our gun violence, other than them bringing the equipment back to the United States. The unconstitutional wars are unconstitutional wars, and those are wars perpetrated onto other countries, or we send our men and women in arms to other countries to fight for corporations to make money, to overturn other governments, and whatever else they see for their profits and their needs in the top 1%. Now, when we begin to look at gun violence, I agree we need a ban on assault weapons, but we also need to look at gun violence as a systemic problem. The systemic problem is mental health. It is lack of jobs. It is poverty. It is homelessness. When people do not have enough money to take care of themselves, those people begin to act out and do what they need to do to take care of their families. Then we've not had one Black child who has gone into schools and shot up those schools. That's privilege. Those kids do not know the word no. Some of them may have mental health issues, but some of them also have issues with not getting what they want, or they've been rejected by someone and they don't understand or know what rejection is, and this is how they retaliate for it. So I don't see those two issues as the same issues. I see them as very, very different issues. As except one deals with people who are trying to take care of their families, and the other being people who are too rich to take down, that we need to take down. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. And Jeremy?
So Gigi's right. There's something very telling that every mass shooter in the United States has almost exclusively been a white male. In the United States, you're far more likely to be killed by a white nationalist than you are by any Muslim terrorist. That said, every problem you listed is real and serious, but we need to back off the hyperbole a little bit. We currently live in the safest time humans have ever lived. We currently live in the safest nation the United States has ever been. There are literally more guns today than there have ever been per capita. There are literally more people in the United States than there have ever been, and the rate of violent crime has continued to drop. Our problem is we glorify and sensationalize it, not just in the fiction media, but in the news media. If it bleeds, it leads, runs all of our news media. I guarantee you can name the shooter in almost every shooting for the last 10 years, but you can't name the police officer or the citizen who stopped him. You can't name most of the victims because those don't get broadcast. We don't show the images of the grieving families. We show the guy, the villain, smiling as he's put in the back of a squad car. We don't talk about the name of the police officer or the citizen who tackled it. Our president refused to even acknowledge an unarmed black man who tackled a lunatic with a rifle in a Waffle House. So the worst are an issue both of militarizing our society and our people, the privilege, the concept that we have a cadre of emotionally immature young white men who don't understand the concept of being told no, to the point where being dumped by a girl is grounds for shooting an entire school up is insane. The concept of an assault weapon ban, you'd have to explain to me how you can ban an assault weapon based on any of its characteristics that doesn't then ban 90% of weapons in the United States. I've gotten a little off topic here. I'd love to talk gun policy. It's an entirely separate issue. But we need to stop sensationalizing violence and start addressing the ground problems that are mental health, that are income insecurity, that are young white men who don't understand emotional maturity to take no for an answer.
Time.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you all for your answers. And we'll start with Gigi for this one, and it's about environment. Threats like sea levels, ocean anoxia, and massive methane release at the polar ice caps are escalating the danger to our society that climate change possesses. We must aggressively become carbon negative to ensure the survival of all species on Earth. What policies do you propose to address this existential threat with the urgency it demands? Gigi?
I think this also goes back to climate change and environmental protection and building environmentally clean environment. One of the things I just read about the other day was how they're using seaweed, because seaweed pulls in the methanol, or not the methane, and a lot of the negative, and the seaweed is able to turn that into clean water. So if we can begin to use more seaweed or get more seaweed in our water systems, get more seaweed even in the homes where we have tanks, and it showed household tanks, fish tanks with seaweed in it that never had to be cleaned because the seaweed in itself did a lot of the work. I think to protect our environment, we must use the environment, and there are so many ways that can be done. Another is through the worms, where you can put worms into boxes and people can put their garbage into those worm boxes, where the worms begin to eat on those, and when they excrete, it goes back into the soil. That soil can also be moved back into the land.
Warning.
And it can begin to change our land, change our air, go into our water, but it's going to take us making those natural and progressive moves to move us in that right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. And I love vermiculture, the worm composting. And Jeremy, you're next.
Okay, so to become carbon neutral, carbon negative, we need to immediately start basic policies. We need to revoke all of the tax subsidies and breaks for companies like oil companies that produce the majority of our carbon pollution. The argument that solar would not be able to compete or other alternative technologies can't compete is true on an unlevel playing field. Petrochemical industry is the most heavily subsidized industry and one of the most profitable on the face of the earth. The first immediate step is to stop subsidizing the things that are destroying the world. Make coal, make gas, natural gas, make gasoline compete on a level playing field, or take those subsidies and move them directly to solar, hydro, even nuclear if it can be made into modern technology that's safe. There is no simple, we can all start composting, that's a good idea. We can all start studying seaweed or algae fuels or anything else, but the first step the government needs to take is to stop paying for and rewarding companies that they're the product of their production, the product that they sell, are absolutely poisoning our planet. Technology is not the only solution. We can start changing our policies. We can start changing our practices as consumers stop buying disposable things that made out of plastic and dumping them in the ocean. Ocean acidification is related to CO2 release. There are technologies, the United States Navy and Audi in Germany can take CO2 from the ocean and water and use electricity and produce diesel or jet fuel from it. It is possible to produce enough green energy in the United States that we could produce all of the jet fuel. You're never going to put enough batteries on a 747 to make it electric, but you could make all of its fuel
Warning.
from renewable energy. It is possible. We just need to shift our priorities. This isn't technology that needs to be developed. It exists today. We just need our national priorities to reflect survival of the species and survival of the planet.
I think that's all.
Thank you so much. And Dave Strider.
The environment. I had a website called Solar Winds on Facebook, and I had a picture. Jeremy talked about just now, electric airplanes. In 2015, Airbus flew an electric plane across the English Channel for 46 miles. Now, it can be done, okay, with the lightweight fabrics and substances that we have out there now. Yes, that can be a reality. 2013, when I was leaving Taipei and flying over the South China Sea, which I almost got washed overboard in 1973 for being on deck when I shouldn't have been. But South China Sea, I'm flying over it in my airplane, EVA Airlines, and I look down there and I see what it looked like an island. And as far as I could see out. And so for over an hour, flying about 400 miles an hour, I flew over this continent of trash. Now, every ocean on this planet has a continent of trash out there. And it's affecting the sea life. The Great Barrier Reef is being decimated. It may not be there because of what? Global warming. We don't need to be doing any more dumping in the ocean. We need to take these big trawlers and start harvesting that and use it, recycling. We can do that. We need to stop all of this. Fossil fuels. I believe there's a House bill out there, 3671, sponsored by Tulsi Gabbard. I think that it's out there. It can be done. We need to do it. We don't need to take years to do it. We just do it like we did it in World War II. We mobilized and did it.
Time.
Thank you, Dave. And Steve?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the global warming thing because I've done some reading and it seems like that if the tundra starts to thaw and that releases a bunch of more CO2 and then it becomes a big feedback loop and accelerates. And so we really have to take, as you said, go carbon negative and take bold action now. So what I would propose is nationalizing the entire energy industry under the workers' control and the community control. And that way, because there's too much profit that the energy corporations still want to milk out of all the equipment and all the mining rights that they've purchased. I mean, and these corporations buy politicians and they are going to really, so we have to take it out of the profit mode and put it into a publicly built, a public system that immediately does a swift transition to sustainable energy. And I just kind of think of it like we could do the technology and implement some of the things that everybody's talking about, and I'm sure there's many more that could be developed. I mean, and we have to do something like in World War II, they had the Manhattan Project, you know, to develop the atomic bomb. And then the guys kind of freaked out. The Oppenheimer said, we have become the destroyer of worlds right after you saw what it did. But we need our own socialism. We could have our own Manhattan Project and rebuild these technologies, and we can be the rejuvenators of worlds because it will not be based on profit. That's it.
Well, thank you. All right. One last question before we introduce you for your closing statement. So this last question, and we'll start with.
Well, actually, Tyler would like to jump in before the closing statements to ask a few just quick thumbs up, thumbs down questions for you guys. But thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Rhonda. All right. So my last question is about food production. It's integral to maintaining our society, and climate change poses a threat to our food system in the very near future. What are your policies to ensure food security in the coming decades? And as I said, we'll start with Jeremy.
Okay, so federal crop subsidies are a product of a good idea gone bad. We subsidize the living crap out of corn to the point where we make ethanol out of it and energy loss. We can take federal money without increasing it and actually assign it to crops that people eat, not corn that's used to feed cows, not corn that's used to make ethanol at an energy loss to subsidize a gasoline company, which, by the way, is a cheap way for them to up the octane of the gasoline they sell. So, while it's a good idea for the federal government to ensure the stability of the food supply to subsidize crops, it's also important that they subsidize food. There is no reason why a salad costs more at McDonald's than a hamburger. If you look at the energetics of what an animal has to eat to go to mass, to be made into a hamburger, versus taking that same food mass, that same land that was used to grow that food, and grow nutritious things for people to eat, there is no justification for a poor family to make the choice that a burger is cheaper than a salad, no matter how unhealthy it is for their kid. So that's how you start to address the health of the nation, the health of the food supply, is you reassign the act of crop subsidies to the original intent, and that's to feed people, not to feed corporations and not to feed cows. That's a simple answer.
Thank you. And Dave.
Good food to eat, nourishment, health, all of that. We can have all of it. The thing is, we're not talking about is how we're going to fund it. We talk about raising the taxes. You know, I'm in all accordance with raising the taxes to Eisenhower's level, 90% on the top tier. But I'm also all for federal public spending. That means our entire education system nationwide is taken care of. I'm talking about universal health care of nationwide across the nation, federally funded. I'm talking about an infrastructure bill, and where's all this money going to go? It's going to go right back into the economy, right back into the economy, and we're going to be able to start having food stuff. We don't have to worry about it. When you've got leaders like Prince Harry talking about there's too many people in the world, and then you talk about Kissinger, who had a plan, I guess they call it Plan 21, elimination of people, whether it's genocide in Yemen or Palestine, Afghanistan, Myanmar. Does it matter where it's at? Somalia? No. We have the ability and the knowledge to make enough food for each and every individual, every human on this planet. We have that technology without using Monsanto. We have that technology to feed the people. We have that ability to reach out and make humanity the best that it can be. Was that a warning?
Yes.
We need to think about humanity. You want your children starving? No. Well, guess what? I'm not going to choose between my children and your children and someone else's children that I have never met that's in a different land. What I have for my children, I have for your children and for their children as well. We are a republic. We are not an empire. And when people get that through their heads,
Time.
Maybe.
Thank you. And Steve.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways we can improve the food system. I think a lot of folks are working on it. I mean, I think, Courtney, you're probably involved in a lot of that kind of agricultural things that are more sustainable techniques. We have the food forest here in Seattle, but also all over the world, most farmers in the world are women. And in places like Africa, they're losing their land and they're plowing it up to big plantations, and it's screwing up the environment. They have to use more and more pesticides and fertilizers when they could go to the women and ask them. They need to be kept on their land for one thing, but they know the ecology, the local ecology has been handed down to them over generations. And they're the ones that could find the most sustainable, least chemical methods for growing food, healthy food. There's a whole campesino movement throughout the world that is fighting for the rights of indigenous women and poor women farmers in different countries. There's a landless peasants movement in Brazil. We need to work with these groups and put them at the forefront of developing farming techniques that take the best of both worlds. I think we need to have students who are studying agriculture should be studying science, but they should go be talking to the women who've done the farming for generations to gain their wisdom and knowledge. And so I think, yeah, and we also need to spread those techniques to small farmers in this country. And so these small farmers need to be protected from being bought out by the big agribusiness, and they need to be given training and resources to do sustainable farming. And help from the Department of, from the universities and stuff on how to do that.
That's it.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. And Gigi.
First off, I want to say the FDA is corrupt. And many countries will not accept food from the United States because the food is not safe and it's not healthy. I think we need to go back to farming the way farming was. There was the time when with farming, they rotated the crops, and the reason they rotated the crops was because certain crops pull certain nutrients out of the ground. When they farm using those crops are moved to another area, that area has the opportunity to replenish the nutrients that have been pulled up. My husband grew up as a farmer, so I understand how when our government is coming in and our government is saying where a farmer can only grow corn or they can only grow one specific thing, we have lost the nutrients in our food. That's the reason we need supplements. That's the reason our bodies are starving, because we do not have the nutrition in our bodies that we need, because the agriculture is not growing the way it needs to grow. And that is also the reason organic farming is the best way, because they are not using all of the pesticides. All of that goes into it and it goes deeper, but we need to get back to real farming, rotation of the crops, and teaching people and allowing people to be able to grow food and not pay not to grow food by our federal government. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And so now I will thank you for all of your answers, because it's one of my favorite topics. And now if Tyler is available, I will hand it off to Tyler.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Are you guys all good on time? I know we're probably way over time. Okay, so we thank you all. I'm a huge fan of every one of your campaigns, and most of my questions are strategic questions. I'm a firm supporter of all four of you, and probably the hardest decision I'll make this year is who to throw my weight behind in this particular race. Most of what I have to ask is about that, and I just hope you all know that all of us are deeply respectful of all of you, regardless of how this goes down. I'm gonna start with the easy ones. Just answer honestly, yes, no. If you want to do like a double yes, or this means not applicable or something else, or if you choose not to respond, just don't put any thumbs up for these questions. So
Once again, Tyler, just a small question because this will be live streamed and people only come up when they say something. So if you could just say yes or no, that would be better than holding thumbs up. Otherwise, it won't be visible. People won't be able to see their answer.
Well, actually, Courtney can turn it to full view.
Gallery view. Yeah.
yeah, put it on. It'll get pretty jumbled if we do vocal yes and no simultaneously.
So gallery view will do it.
Thank you. And if you know, we do have a chat box, so if you want to respond further to this stuff, put it in the chat box. Okay, so most of you know about the real First Amendment, the original First Amendment, in which the size of the House of Representatives should be one for every 50,000 people that came up earlier. Do you support the enactment of the original First Amendment, which would increase the size of the House of Representatives by a factor of 8? Okay. Would you run for office in that scenario, provided you were not in the Senate? Would you run for House of Representatives if there were 80 seats open in Washington State? Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so a bunch of strategic questions. As you guys all know, we have to worry about splitting the vote in the Senate race. We have serious problems in the fact that we might even get 2 reds in this particular scenario, but worse than that, we are likely to not get a progressive through the primary in this particular race. So a long string of questions regarding that. In the primary, in the top 2 primary, if we get through the primary and it's Maria versus some Republican, will you support Maria Cantwell? Will you support the Republican? Will you support a write-in? Probably depends on who it is, but yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay, in that same race, if it were a Republican versus a Libertarian, probably Mike Luke, would you support the Libertarian? I'm making it hard for you guys on purpose here. Okay, in the top, if the top 2 primary includes one of you 4, but not yourself, will you support that person? If same question, if it was, are there some people in this room that you would support going through if it was not yourself? Okay. Would you participate in a people's primary in which before filing week, all the groups got together and we decided amongst all of us who was the strongest candidate, with the Green Party, the Socialist Party, Progressive Party, Progressive Democrats, and everybody else we could rally. And we got everybody together to vote on between the 4 of you, and if there were any other progressives, they would be allowed. And everybody was in. Would you bow out to support one single candidate in that scenario? One no, 2 maybes, and 1 abstention. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm going to leave it at that. I just want you all to know how much I respect and deeply appreciate all 4 of you, and I would love, all of this is in the spirit of exactly what you guys are doing. I know we had one question from the floor from Brian. I think that it got answered in our last round, but Brian, if you need further clarification on your question, could you put it back in chat? And all of you candidates, if you could have a look at chat, and if anybody else out there wants to get questions in while the candidates are making their closing statements, please put them in the chat box so that they can get addressed. And I think I'm going to hand back to Rhonda so you can give some closing words and hear one last bit from the candidates. Thank you guys. Really appreciate everybody in here. It's really well done.
All right, so we did end up doing about 2 hours worth is what we did do it, but we started late, so that's why we're ending late. But it is right about 2 hours that we did this length. So there is a couple questions that were posted within the Washington Bernie Kratz group thread, but I want to make sure how you guys feel on your time. I don't want to take any if you have to go. I know families and all of that. We can always send those to you guys later. And if you guys want to respond, we can make please respond in the thread in Washington Bernie Kratz Coalition to those questions. Otherwise, there's a couple in there I'd like to bring in. So yes, I thumbs up, thumbs down. Yes, stick around for a few. Thumbs down, you've got to go. Stick around? Yes? Okay, thank you. So there's a couple that just stood out real quick from me. From Gloria. What is your view on reparations for former slaves is one piece. I think we kind of heard about what you guys think about the Native Americans water protectors. So I think we did that. And then what is your view on Title IX? And when it comes to that, I guess I'm not exactly sure myself what Title IX is, which I feel bad about. So if one of you guys do, I'd love to hear. I don't know who went first last time.
Jeremy went first.
Okay, so then going from my list, it would be Dave. Would you like to take that, please?
You good?
We need somebody to explain what Title IX is.
And Dave, you're muted.
Can someone please explain what Title IX is? I've got so much stuff in
I'll
my.
Google that right now.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that.
If you'd like to just speak on.
I just need what it encompasses, what right it encompasses.
Okay, I think Jeremy knows what that is. Jeremy?
I could be wrong, but Title IX is equal funding for women's sports, equal funding for women in education.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll put it to you this way. We're all created equal. I have 9 granddaughters. I have 3 daughters, and I'll tell you what, they deserve. When my first daughter was born, the commanding, he was the senior judge. He says, "Well, Sergeant," he said, "what do we have?" I said, "We had a president, sir," and I had a box of Dutch Master Presidents, our favorite cigar. He says, "No, Sergeant, what'd you have? What'd we have?" I said, "She's going to be a president, sir." So in 1976, the first baby born at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and in Jacksonville, North Carolina, I told my senior judge, she's going to be a president. Now, that's how I feel about women. I was raised by a single woman, okay? And I believe that women have that need to do what? Achieve their dreams. I mean, if it wasn't for the woman manning the factories and ferrying the planes from the continent, USA to Europe, what would we have? Nothing. Rosie the Riveter, remember all those stories during WW2? We seem to have forgotten about the contribution that they gave. The educators that were women, we seem to forget about them too. We seem to forget about our sisters and our mothers, our aunts who were out there making sure that we had what we needed, making sure that we walked the straight and narrow. We may not have had much, but
Warning.
we knew this. What we were doing was okay. It was all right because we weren't trying to hurt somebody else. So women, yeah, I opened the door for my wife, okay? I opened the door for her and I try to go first for her. I mean, equality, plain and simple. No equality. I don't need a Chapter 9 or a Title 9 to give equality to my daughters. It's because I say so to my daughters. Your daughters, everyone's daughters.
Thank you very much, Dave.
You're
Steve?
Yes, I think Title IX might be a little broader than just the sports thing. I think it's against discrimination of all kinds against women and unequal access to things. I would support reparations for slavery because just the depth of that crime that happened to African Americans. And as far as how to recover from all this discrimination, both the racial discrimination and gender discrimination, one of the things I would promote is the restoration of affirmative action. because I just think that that has been ripped away. And it is one thing that really worked to diversify the workforce, but also it built solidarity amongst the working class. It brought different kinds of folks and different backgrounds working together. To me, affirmative action equals class solidarity. It's an extremely important remedy for discrimination, and it's been sold out by the Democratic Party, right? And so people are afraid to stand up for it. But I'm not. You know, I've always fought for affirmative action. I fought Initiative 200 that got rid of it back in 98, about 20 years now. We've been gone. Looks what happened to the enrollment of people of color in the universities and the kind of discrimination on the job. I mean, we're still facing discrimination. We need to break down the barriers, and affirmative action is a really good way to do it. It actually works, and we need to embrace it and do a lot more of it instead of gutting it. Thanks.
Thank you so very much, Steve. Gigi, your turn.
As far as Title IX, I think I stand by what I've stated before. Equal work for equal pay, and that includes sports. And I think people are showing that they will pay for women to watch women play sports just as they've paid for men. They've done it in history. Reformation for Black people. We're not necessarily asking for reformation. I think we're asking for equality. We're asking for justice. We're asking to be assessed at the same level as everyone else, instead of we have to be twice as good on a job as a man or a white male, even a white female, than anyone else. Our glass ceiling is much lower than it is for other races. We've always asked for justice and equality. And if we are given justice and equality, then there would be no need for reformation. If we cannot have justice and equality, then the affirmative action, we need the Voting Rights Act definitely has to be put back in. We need representation in the Senate and in the House, which we do not have, that equates to the amount of Black and brown people in the United States. So, and the Washington State Democratic Party, I'm sorry to say, is doing everything they can to keep minorities out of the U.S., any high level position that there is. Thank you.
Thanks, Gigi. And then Jeremy.
So I'm glad Gigi got to it. I absolutely agree. The Voters' Rights Act is a perfect parallel to Title IX. Both of these things should not be needed. Both of them are needed. So until they are no longer needed, I would absolutely support both of them. Reparations for Black people or not for Black people, for slaves, for descendants of slaves. It's a good concept. In practice, two wrongs don't make a right. Would you exempt people who were slaves from the amount of their tax dollars that would be used to pay reparations to descendants of slaves? How would you handle a descendant of a slave and a slave owner? It seems like a good idea, but in practice, I would much rather take the same amount of money or the same amount of effort and address the lasting effects of slavery, address the inner city poverty, address poor white communities are mixed much more thoroughly with middle income and upper income. Black communities are inner city, and the inner city gets mistreated. That's why Flint has terrible water. It's for a current outcome of slavery. It's better to spend the federal dollars fixing the continuing damage and the legacy of the mistreatment of slaves, former slaves, descendants of slaves, than it is to try and bureaucratically find what percentage of your bloodline was owned, what percentage of your bloodline was owner. We deduct B from A. Do you have ancestors from another country that are now in this country that were involved in the slave trade, helping the slavers? It's impossible, and basically it would be a giant political. I'd say football would be a giant political victory for race baiters. It'd be a giant political victory for racists. Instead, we should take that federal money and address education inequality, both addressing outcomes, but also addressing opportunities. There's no reason why a public school in a poor sector of Chicago should be treated differently than a public school in a rich suburb of Chicago. What it happens is the poor suburb is full of Black people who are descendants of slaves, descendants of Jim Crow, and descendants of redlining. All of that needs to be addressed way before we worry about going back and trying to make the modern equivalent of 40 acres and a mule for anyone who can prove they're a descendant of a slave.
Time.
Thank you, Jeremy, very much. So I don't know if we need to take 2 minutes on this each, maybe a minute, minute and a half. I'm not sure, but it's something that there's a few people out here really wanting to know. So there's kind of mixture here. There's some, I want to know their path to victory. How do they plan to win? All these candidates are good on policies, but I see a tough path ahead of them. We want to know if they have a plan. So somebody seconded, they want to know kind of funds raised, signature gathering, size of the campaign operation, win numbers, and strategy. So they just kind of want to see if there's, how the race is going.
Let's do 1 minute. I'm so sorry, but let's do 1 minute. And you don't have to explain your strategy to us. Just we want to make sure you have a plan.
And is it Dave first this time, I believe? No, it was Steve first this time.
And I'm sorry, I did get distracted for a moment. Was it pointed out that we are asking people to mention what party they're with?
Oh.
To repeat it.
We can include that in closing.
Yes.
And now too, if it fits in there. Yeah. And then it'll be closing time after this, unless somebody else has something further.
Sorry, I was distracted.
Steve Hoffman, you actually get the floor first.
Okay, well, I'm the Freedom Socialist Party candidate, and my party is really definitely behind my campaign, and we have volunteers that are going out, and we collected signatures enough. We surpassed our goal to get signatures 2,500 to get on the ballot, and so we can use the money we would have spent on that on other campaign activities and flyers and advertising and things like that. So I'm traveling the state trying to talk to unions and get union endorsements and community organizations. So just get out there and get the message out and talk to as many people as I can and utilize my volunteers and put up a good fight. And that I think that's all I can think of right now.
Thank you very much, Steve. Gigi, you're up next.
We're working on signatures, however, we have the money to get on the ballot. I have actually hired a campaign management team that is working for helping train me in fundraising. I've already started partially last year and will continue to across the state, speaking to people, speaking out. I have a radio talk show that I do on Sunday mornings as a co-host, and Sunday evenings we will be starting a internet radio and radio talk show
15
to
seconds.
get information out. And so we have a lot of plans, a lot of things going on that we're pulling in from all directions. This is going to be a very strong and aggressive, progressive campaign, and I am running as an independent.
Thank you, Gigi. Jeremy, you're next.
So I already have the Justice Party of America's endorsement. I'm hoping for the Bernie Kratz endorsement, the Green Party endorsement, Movement for a People's Party, Our Revolution, and a couple of other smaller groups. In the last election in 2016, I managed to pull 3.35 votes for every dollar I spent doing a out of my own pocket, next to no money, on my own private time outside of work campaign. The winner of that election spent $5.35 for every single vote she got in the general election, which was about twice as attended as the primary. I win when I talk to people. I win when I get the message out. I can earn votes from independents, from Democrats, and several Republicans. I had people who were diehard Trump voters who converted to my cause. I had people who were voting for Trump to burn the whole thing down. They hated Trump, but they were still willing to give me their vote as a chance to win.
15 seconds.
I'm dependent on a party endorsement. I intend to run full-time if I run. If I don't get the endorsements, it's not a winnable path. I've proved that you can't run as a solo person your own on part-time campaign, so I will commit full-time or I won't.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. And Dave.
I'm a veteran, so I know what it takes to get something done. I know what objectives are, and I am also used to hardships. I was a leader appointed by the United States Marine Corps. I also, in 1977, decided that when I saw a lot of people being hurt and damaged for the rest of their lives, that I knew I had to step up. That's why I'm going on 41 years of legal access to marijuana. I received VA healthcare. It's top notch. Yes, I did say earlier in this broadcast that I had cancer, and I've been cured. Anybody want? So, I mean, I'm just telling you, I am a fighter. I do not quit. Marines do not know the word surrender. You go to my website, davestratfordussenate.com. I've got over 1 million hits and blogs on my websites right now since October 2007. It's been a pleasure, and talking with all of you here.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, we still have your final little last bits here, so hold on to a little bit of that. Okay. Thank you so much. Who wants to take us?
Courtney's taking us through the closing. Courtney?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here and answering our questions with substantive policy answers. You have, are we doing 1 minute then?
Yep, no, it's 2 is fine for closing, so they get 2.
Excellent. We have 2 minutes each to give your closing statements. Please include where our viewers can find you and what party you're running as. Again, it was asked by a viewer. Thank you. Oh, and we'll start with, I lost track, so let's just go with Gigi.
Gigi, you're muted.
Okay, now I was trying, I couldn't get it to go there. Okay, I'm Jennifer Gigi Ferguson. I'm just gonna say, for people who don't know, I was born in the projects of Chicago with my mother and a midwife. Lost my mother to cancer when she was 6.5, when I was 7.5, 6 months after she was diagnosed. I've been in the busing program where they shift into white schools in order, instead of giving equal education across the way. I played golf. I didn't know that white people play golf when I was the only Black on my golf team. I have been involved with politics unknowingly since I was in high school, where the governor of Illinois appointed me to represent our state or represent his office in a pilot program in a county where Blacks had to be out of town by sundown. I'm used to fighting. I have a husband that's a Vietnam veteran. I have a son that served in Iraq. I have a son currently sitting on the DMZ in South Korea. I am a mental health professional. I gave 2,200 hours at Madigan in the intensive outpatient program, working with our veterans and our soldiers. And I'm also, in less than 13 months, I'm also the person that went to Congressman Norm Dix and told him about the closure of the intensive outpatient program. And the reason they closed it was because too many veterans were being diagnosed with PTSD. I have 30 years of community service working in almost every area there is. And I think I bring a lot to, will bring a lot to the Senate from my experience, as well as my color and the fact that I am a woman. And I'm passionate, I'm a hard worker. I know how to get things done one way or another. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gigi. And we'll go with Jeremy next. And oh, Gigi, you're running as an independent, yes?
Yes, I have always been a Democrat, but I am running as an independent. We need to have a voice that
And
is
where can
not
the
paid.
viewers find you?
Thank you. I'm sorry?
And where
They
can the
can
viewers
find
find
me
you?
at www.gigiforsenate.us. That's GIGIFORSENATE.US. I'm also on Twitter at Fergus Gigi, and my Facebook page is Vote Jennifer Gigi Ferguson.
Thank you.
That-
Gigi.
Okay, and you can also email me at gigiforsenate@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and we also accept all donations because I do not accept corporate money, large corporation monies. Thank you.
And Jeremy, thank you for being patient.
Actually, just to cover the same stuff, my name is Dr. Jeremy Teuton. I'm a research scientist and a professional problem solver. I work at the National Lab in the Tri-Cities and have for the last about 10 years, 9 years. You can find me at drjeremyteuton.com, Dr. DrJeremyTeuton.com. That is also my Twitter handle. That is also my Gmail address. I welcome all questions. I try and answer them personally. I try and answer them in a timely fashion. I've been interested in politics and policy my whole life. I never wanted to be a politician. I never wanted to run for office. I just don't see anybody else solving the problem. I'm sick of promises being made to get elected that aren't followed. I'm sick of people buying into the ever more grand promises. I ran the last time purely as an independent. I ran under what I call the System Reboot Party because the premise is our government is structured for a bloodless coup every 6 years. We can kick every elected official out and get people in who represent the people. That campaign drew the attention of the Justice Party of America, and they endorsed me very quickly. I am running this time, hopefully, as a poly endorsement candidate. I would like to be able to put that on the ballot next to my name instead of Justice Party. They're perfectly happy with me being co-supported by Green, Bernie Kratz, Our Revolution. I will not do Justice Dems. I've checked; they require you to be a Democrat. I am not. Quick summary. I'm a rated skydiver. I ride a motorcycle and wear a helmet. I understand the concept that responsibility goes along with rights and freedoms. I think the people of the United States, and specifically the people of Washington, aren't represented by Republicans representing Republicans and Democrats representing Democrats. I think it's incumbent on a representative to be a representative and a leader. You have to be able to bring your argument to people who don't necessarily agree with you and try and win them to your cause. You have to support and represent people who didn't necessarily vote for you and don't necessarily agree with you on most issues. I think the way we talk to people, the way we address issues can get a broader scope of people, get people back involved in politics, and get turnout that might actually overturn the two-party control of the country.
Fine.
Thank you.
Where can people find you, Jeremy?
Again, drjeremyteuton.com is my webpage. Dr. Jeremy Teuton is my Twitter handle, and drjeremyteuton@gmail is my email address for the campaign. And like I said, I try and respond on Twitter, on Facebook. Oh, I have a public figure Facebook page as well. Thank you. And again, it's Dr.
And you're running as a...
Currently, I'm endorsed by the Justice Party of the United States. If I can get the Bernie Kratz endorsement, the Green Party endorsement in time, I will have a notice on the campaign, on the ballot, that I'm a United Independence, United Progressive Party. It'll be discussed with the parties that endorse me.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeremy. And Dave, remember to mention where we can find you and what we can do.
Well, my name's Dave Strider for U.S. Senate. I'm an independent for the people of Washington State here. I mean, I was thinking about running in 2015 when I started seeing the debacle of what was going on. I don't take corporation money. In fact, I've turned back over $6,000 that I could not verify citizenship. I've been running my campaign on about $1,400. Not bad, plus self-funding it myself. But what has really happened is the amount of people that have pulled out and started coming out here. I mean, I have a very wide, diverse history in my family. I am tied directly to the American Revolution. Cornwallis surrendered to Washington at my grandmother's home. It's a national monument called the Moore House. That's right, Lydia Moore, she married into the Strider family. Henceforth, I get to say, yeah, that was my grandmother's house. Our family's been on both sides of the Civil War. A lot of my family was in the black regiments on the north. We've been in every war that there is, this nation, my family has. I enlisted in the Marine Corps. 236 was my draft number. And that was because of what happened at Kent State University. for dead in Ohio. That's when I awoke. That's when I decided I was going to be part of the best military unit the world had ever seen. I still am. I still walk in that pathway.
Warning.
I believe in healthcare for all, single payer, free education, no more wars, no more inequality in our humanity. I am a human being, just like everyone here in this room right now. We are humans. There are no other colors, no other races. I was a Marine. Everyone in my unit were green.
Time.
Thank
I
you.
always get that time stuff, you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Steve, remind us what you're running as and where people can find you and your closing statements.
I'm running as a Freedom Socialist Party candidate, and you can find my platform and everything else at votesocialism.com. And you can make donations there. There's a donation button because, yeah. I tell everybody I'm running a people-powered campaign, but, you know, in terms of money, my opponent Cantwell is a Goliath compared to me, and even slingshots are not free, right? So I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, and I'm an anti-war veteran. I've opposed every war since I got out of the Navy, I think. And I was at the picket line the other day with the workers at the Veterans Administration about a month or 3 weeks ago or whatever, at the picketing to stop the privatization of the VA, and the fact that they have 50,000 staff positions that they haven't filled. They're trying to sabotage the VA so they can privatize it, and that has got to be stopped. And that is something I would fight like hell in Congress to stop. My platform is based on basically the experience of the Freedom Socialist Party, which has a long history of building united fronts and coalitions with other people and other organizations to fight against discrimination, to protect workers and protect unions, and to stand up to the right wing and the fascists. And that we've done a lot of. And so I just feel like we also need political independence for working people. And what we need in this country is an independent labor party that's accountable to the working class and not to the capitalist class. Because if we stick together, we working people have power. Because we create all the wealth in society. Without us, nothing would happen. So my campaign slogan is strength through solidarity. And thanks a lot for this forum. It was really a very learning experience.
Time.
Enjoyed the time with you guys.
Time. Dave, you can mention your links that you forgot to mention. Go ahead. You're muted.
All night long, okay? But you go to DaveStriderForUSSenate.com. There are hyperlinks to every one of the social media platforms that I'm on. I also have a translator on my page, and most of the donations coming into my campaign has been from the millennials. And they have been a very big group, and it's normally about $10. But there are links that take you right to my pages on those Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Tumblr, 3 YouTube accounts, plus the .com, and 2 Facebook accounts.
Thank
plus
you, Dave.
yeah, it's a lot.
Thank you very much. Again, we really appreciate all of you guys for taking the time out and the extended time tonight. We did get to learn a lot more about each of you, and it does help us out tremendously. So, thank you.
Courtney, you go last. Courtney Hassan.
Thank you for coming and taking time out of your busy campaign schedules to educate us on your policies. After this debate, all your names will be put forth for a vote under the star voting system. We will either put it through Facebook or private vote through Action Network, and it will be up for a week, after which we will update you and our members on the results. Thank you again for being here, and we look forward to your campaigns.
Peace out. Time to boogie with rock and roll.
We're still live. Courtney, take us off live.
I was getting